Morning, everybody. David Shapiro here. We are going to dive back into artificial cognition, working on building an ACOG or an artificial cognitive entity. Let's do a quick review of where we left off. So where we left off was I have the main loop of the ACOG, which is the inner loop. So this is the thought. So in terms of how this compares to a human, if you're just sitting there thinking and not doing anything, that's what this is. If you're thinking, let's see, what should I do today? Or what happened yesterday? What do I make of this? That is what I mean by the inner loop. This is cognition that is not connected directly to action. That's what we're working on right now. So basically what I did was I started breaking it up into nested loops. And so you've got the main loop, which is just ongoing reality, and then there's several smaller loops within that. I haven't worked on it in a little while, and there's a reason, and that reason is because I'm working on a book. I'm working on my third book, which is called Symphony of Thought. And basically, if you want to master something, write a book about it, because writing a book will reveal everything that you don't know or all the assumptions that you made. And so in working on this book, I have come up with a few things that I was missing. So let me show you a high-level idea of how this goes. So the first thing is context. So context is all the information you take from the outer world. So this is not necessarily outer world. This can be context from your body, right? Do you feel hot or cold? What do you see? What do you hear? What has happened recently? So that's context. Then the very next thing that we do is we do assessment. And so assessment is like, okay, what do we make of this situation? In the brain, in neuroscience, this is automatic inference, like that ball's coming at my face, right? Or that car is going to crash, or someone said my name. That's what I mean by assessment, where it's just like, okay, let's just establish what's going on in the world. Let's start to get the most baseline information extraction about this, so that we can start making sense of it. The next thing that happens is recall. So based on what we see and hear and smell and feel, our brain automatically recalls relevant memories. So if you see your best friend, your brain automatically recalls the last time you saw them, previous conversations. If you walk into a new room, you remember what happened last time you were in that room, but you forget why you went into the room because your brain said, oh, this is a new task set. Let's throw away all those memories that we just had and open a new task set. Because our memory is associative. So this is one of the most critical things. This is one of the most critical shortcuts that human brains take, is that our memories are associative, which means that we associate time and place, but also event and people, right? And there's a lot of other associations. Everything we do is associative. So anyways, based on what's going on in our outer world and the assessment we make of it, then we recall memories. And these memories, there's two overriding types of memories. There is episodic memory, which is anchored in time. That is what happened to me. This is what I observed. And then there's declarative memory, which are just facts, abstract facts that are not connected to a time or place. And those two memory systems are actually different memory systems in the brain, which is why if you have amnesia, you can still remember everything you learned in school, but you might forget your past. Okay, so then you take the context, that's the input, you assess what's going on, you recall all the relevant stuff. Now what? So the next step is ideation. Your brain has neurons, canonical neurons, which anything that you see or hear or feel, these neurons will automatically start imagining what you can do in that environment. So this is like a microservice that's running in our heads all the time. I talked about this in a previous video, and someone made the hilarious comment like, so if I see a fork, there's neurons in my head that immediately think I can throw that fork. Yes, that's exactly what happens. And in fact, if you have damage to your brain that harms your executive function, like there was a story in I think it was On Task, where there was a guy that had damage to his self-censorship, and so inhibition. And so if he saw a bed meant get undressed, get in bed, go to sleep. And so he couldn't stop himself. If he just saw any bed, he would just get undressed and get in it, because part of his brain said, oh, that's what bed is for. And so that's what I mean by ideation. It's coming up with possibilities. And then discernment. So once you when you come up with ideas, it's like, okay, I could do X, Y, or Z. Which one should I do? Or any of those bad? Should I do a loop and kind of come back? So another thing with discernment is you might say, actually, let's come up with a different set of ideas. So this might actually be a loop, right? So let me add a little connector here. So discernment is saying, what do I expect is going to happen? Is this in alignment with what I want to achieve? Yes or no? And then finally, agent model, which is okay. Given what the goals are, the most abstract goals, because like imagine, if I'm talking to you about climate change, and whenever we come up with ideas, whenever we're brainstorming, you hear I'm saying we, right? It's not the royal we, like we should do this. It's we as in collectively. We as in humanity. So the concept of we says, what should we do about this? Whether there's a dog attacking a child, or climate change, or a meteor coming to hit Earth, what should we do about it? So we is detached from the self. And so then, in an ideal world, ideation, ideal world, what should we do? And then we discern what we should do in terms of what is the outcome we're looking for, what are the behaviors we should implement. And then finally, one of the last steps before actually acting is feeding it through an agent model or a sense of self, which is, okay, this is what we I decided or thought about what we should do. We talked about what we should do, in an abstract sense, but what is it that I am capable of? So this is what we're working on today. This is mostly going to be prompt engineering. Now, I started a new repo called Heuristic Imperatives because I wanted to test this kind of in isolation. And so what I did was I wrote a script. It's right here, generate scenarios. It's a really short script. Basically, all it does is it takes scopes. So there's 14 scopes, I think. One, two, I'm not going to count it. So there's scopes, severities, and then modifiers. And then what do I do with that? I feed these scope, severity, and modifiers into a scenario generator. And so it says, imagine a random fictional scenario about scale. And so if you go back to the scale, here, let me open both of these so I can just swap between them. So the scale is like an individual person, a pair of people, one family, a small company, a local religious community, a medium company, So imagine, actually I spelled that wrong. It said image. I need to fix that. Let's see. Imagine a random fictional scenario about, like, let's say a single person. This should be modifier. So the modifier would look like this. An emotional, a political, a technological, an environmental, a social, a financial. So like you can say like, imagine a scenario about the entire world. Whoops. About, an entire continent, and it's a political thing. And it is a severity of moderate once in a week commotion. Right, so this should be about an emotional thing about a typical calamity. The situation remains unresolved. Write 2 detailed paragraphs about this scenario. And you might also notice that I added a UUID up here. So this is a technique that I saw someone else do, where if you just add some random characters to the beginning of a prompt, you'll get more entropy. You'll get more randomness, which is really good because this is a really good way to get a little bit more variety, especially from the Instruct series. So what this generated was I generated 500 and some odd different stories. And so let me just show you what one of them looks like. So in the early hours of the morning, the CEO of a large global company is informed of a massive environmental disaster. A huge oil spill has occurred in the company's key manufacturing region, causing widespread panic and confusion. The CEO quickly mobilizes the company's resources to try and contain the spill and mitigate the damage. It's larger. This sounds like the Macondo oil well spill. The resulting environmental damage is catastrophic, and the company is forced to declare bankruptcy. The CEO and other top executives are arrested and charged with negligence. Yeah, that's never going to happen. The company's assets, see there's a typo there, auctioned off to pay for the cleanup costs, leaving the company's employees and shareholders with nothing. So that's bad. Anyways, so I generated 500 stories like this. So these are the contexts. So if we go back here, each of these is a context, and they're at different scales. And so like some of the contexts are just going to be like, well, here, let me just show you. If you go to, let's see, Individual, yeah. So an individual person, critical, mild. So let's say an individual person with a mild something or other. Rachel is in her early 30s and has been married for 5 years. She has a 2-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. Rachel works part-time as a clerical assistant. Her husband, Mark, is a stay-at-home dad. Mark is a stay-at-home dad because Rachel is the breadwinner. Rachel is the breadwinner because she has a degree. Okay. It's just explaining everything. Rachel, okay, here we go. Rachel is having a bad day at work. Her boss is micromanaging her and her coworkers are gossiping about her. Rachel is feeling overwhelmed and stressed. When she gets home, she tries to tell her husband, but he is preoccupied with taking care of the kids. Rachel feels invisible and unimportant. She feels like her husband doesn't understand her and doesn't know how to make him understand. So you can see this scenario on a scale of like 0 to 100 is way closer to 0 than the other one about, the oil spill. And so I generated a whole bunch of scenarios so that I can test this model about how to do artificial cognition. Okay, so now that you're up to speed, let's get to experimenting. We've got our playground here, and so the first thing is context, which I've already generated those. So then how do we assess it, right? Like what's going on here? What do we make of it? And a lot of the assessment has already happened because this kind of implies that whatever is observing this kind of knows what's going on. But let's see. Let's take some quick notes. What happens when you assess a situation? You ask questions like, what's going on? Why is this happening? The who, what, where, when, right? The five W's. When did this start? How did this happen? Let's see. Who, what? Yeah. Who all is involved? Who, what, where? Where is this happening? That sort of stuff. Okay. So we've got kind of a general, like, okay, this is what it means to assess a situation. So let's grab this context, plug this in here, and that's I'll just say assess this situation. Write a detailed paragraph or two about the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, why, and how. I know that's technically 6. To evaluate this situation. And so you might be thinking like, okay, well, is this really going to add any value? Let's wait and see. Because sometimes when you assess a situation, you're sometimes just going to restate what you've read. But in other cases, there's actually going to be really there's going to be some good insights, and also like we can fine tune these assessments over time, right? Because in some cases, you're going to have to ask different questions like, what is the implication here? Let's see. So basically this restates the problem. Rachel is feeling invisible. This is likely causing her to feel overwhelmed and stressed. So there's some inference. In order to improve the situation, Rachel and her husband need to communicate better. See, there we go. So we're getting some actual information from this. So let's go ahead and just save this as the initial assessment prompt. So I'll copy that out here. So we'll do context. So the context you'll see is the same thing here. And then we'll remove this. But yeah, so Rachel needs to explain to her husband why she is feeling overwhelmed and stressed. That's great. And her husband needs to listen to her. So this is very imperative. Like if you say you need to do this, that's kind of absolute thinking. That's not exactly what we're looking for in the long run. But again, we can fine tune this over time. So we will save this under heuristic imperatives, and we will call this prompt assessment. So this is just a first bluff. Let's plug in. Let's see if we can get back to Okay, it's not going to. Let's grab just another random one. See, I've got 500 of these. So eventually I'm going to automate this, right? One day, employees of a medium-sized company arrive at work to find that the entrance has been blocked off by a large truck. The truck is filled and the driver is nowhere to be found. They're trying to find another way because they're late for their morning meeting. The company's president is not happy about the situation. So you can see this is kind of like middle of the road, right? Like this is causing several people distress. but it's not the end of the world either. Okay, so let's plug this context into our assessment prompt and see what happens, because this might tell us to give us some insight as to how can we make this prompt a little bit better. Okay, so it's basically restating it. The five W's are who, what, where, when. Okay. Wanted something a little bit more inference. Let's see. Make insightful inferences about uh, this scenario. All right, so let's try this again because we don't want it to just restate something. We want to actually gain information. We want to gain insight from it. Okay. Okay, so this is still just restating stuff. Write a detailed paragraph or two about. Let's cut out the five W's because that's too prescriptive. Let's see. Let's just say evaluating this situation. Make insightful inferences about the scenario. Because what's the goal here? We want to the purpose here is to communicate, to extract meaningful information about this. The goal is to extract meaningful information about this situation so that decisions and so that planning and decisions can be made. Okay, so let's see if this helps. Oh, there we go. So it's kind of restating it, but not just. So it's like the company's facing a major situation. All right, and it is causing the company to lose money. Okay, so there we go. It's inferring like this is the actual problem. The president is right to be concerned about the situation, and he needs to find and needs to find a way to get rid of the truck as soon as possible. The employee should continue to search for the driver, and they should also call the police again to see if they can help. In the meantime, the company should consider hiring a security guard to keep an eye on the situation and make sure the truck does not cause any more problems. This is better, but it doesn't kind of explain why or speculate as to why. Let's see. Make insightful inferences about the scenario. I think that is too vague. Let's say instead of insightful inferences, let's say infer or speculate about causes and outcomes in this scenario. Because that, like, if you say, okay, if I just say like infer insights, that's like, okay, what does that really mean? But really, what we want is how did we get here? Why? And so speculating about causes, that says, oh, you want me to tell you how this happened. Let's figure out why this happened. But then also saying we want to speculate about outcomes. So let's run this again and see if this prompt is a little bit better. The company is losing productivity and money because its employees are not able to get to work. The president is also not happy if they are able to find the driver. However, the driver is not found. The company may have to close its doors for good. I don't think it's that bad. Let's see. Let's simplify this. Speculate about causes and outcomes. Let's just simplify this. Often simpler is better. The outcome could have been much worse. I'm almost liking the original prompt better. Assess the situation. Yep. Let's see. Describe what's going on in a detailed paragraph or two, evaluating this scenario. Speculate about maybe because we don't want it to just describe it. We want it to really evaluate. Uh, mm, yeah, evaluate what's happening, why, and why. Predict what possible outcomes there are. There we go. So anticipation is a really critical human ability. So maybe that's what I was missing. Situation for the company is not ideal. The employees are already behind their work, and the president is not happy. The company will lose money because of the situation, and the president is likely to be even more unhappy. The employees are doing their best to find the driver. The police are not able to do anything, so the company is forced to close its doors for the day. The employees are sent home. Yep, it's not clear what the outcome of the situation will be, but it's likely the company will not be able to operate as usual until the driver and the truck are gone, or the people can find a way in. Okay, I'm not super happy with this, but this is still adding some value. It's kind of saying, okay, what's going on here? All right, so we'll leave it at that for now. And then, okay, so what's next? We do recall. Now, I did recently work on a new module called VDB Lite for recall, but in this case, we don't have any memories to pull from, so we'll have to make one up, right? So in this case, let's say let's make up a memory for this situation. Let's see. Imagine a previous incident where something like this happened. Describe it in detail. Okay, it's basically just copying it. Let's turn up the temperature. Let's see. Or something, let's say something similar but different happened. Describe it in detail. Okay, it's basically just copying it in the same way. Come on, you can do better than this. All right, maybe I'll just write one myself. Okay. So let's see. Something similar happened about, let's say, I'll just borrow the 2 years ago. But in that case, the HVAC broke and no one was able to work in the office. So let's see what it says. Until it was fixed, which cost the company a lot of money. In the meantime, the president. No, it's not. It's not keeping up. Okay. The president scrambled to find a solution and had everyone relocate to work from home or coffee shops. Ultimately, they found a co-working space nearby and set up a contract so they could work there if needed. Okay, so we'll say that this is kind of like the memory, right? The recall. So I just fabricated a memory. So this is this step, recall. Okay, so now we're at ideation. So ideation, something happened. So let's see. So brainstorm, given the current situation, brainstorm a bunch of different ideas about what we, so remember that kind of royal we can do to proceed in this situation. And then we'll just start with a number. Man, this is really disappointing. Why is DaVinci performing so badly today? Brainstorm a bunch of let's say detailed, very detailed ideas. So if you want to blame the model, you really need to blame yourself. There we go. All right. So these are some off the cuff ideas. I'm still not necessarily happy about it, but we'll accept it for now. All right. So we'll save this as a prompt. So we'll say this is the context, and then we'll say this is the recall, and then we'll say given the current situation, and then we'll save this as prompt. This will be, what did I call this one? This is the ideation. Okay. Prompt, ideation. Okay. And so then let's do a quick time check. We're at 25 minutes. Okay. Yeah. So we'll get through just a little bit further. This is like a kindergarten version of what I'm actually working on, but I'm doing this for the sake of showing everyone what the process is. Okay, so ideation. So we came up with a bunch of ideas. Let's copy these ideas because we will need them. Here, we'll just copy this whole thing. Okay. And then we'll say, okay, so now that we've got some ideas, let's do some discernment. Here are some ideas of how to proceed. So now we're at the discernment phase, which is like, okay, are any of these ideas good? Given the above ideas, let's see, which ones are going to be the safest, most effective, and most reliable? So discernment is saying, okay, we're going to measure something against some kind of value or number that we're trying to optimize, to minimize or maximize, right? So we want it to be the safest, most effective, and most reliable. Write a detailed discussion about what we should do and why. So explainability is critical for artificial intelligence. And so when you're dealing with artificial cognition, you want it to explain, not just make a choice, but explain why. And so let's see what it does here. The most important thing is find out where the truck came from and why it's blocking the entrance. Once we know more about the situation, we can decide on the best course of action. If the truck is blocking the entrance because it is broken down, see, then we may be able to move it ourselves or have it towed. However, if it's blocking because the driver is trying to make a delivery, then we need to get it. If we can't find the driver, we need to call the police. Okay, so it's kind of restating what it wants to do. But it's like, okay, maybe we just get it out of the way because that's going to be the most efficient. So maybe this one is actually okay. So we'll copy paste this over here, and we'll do this. So this is context, recall, and then we'll say ideas, and then finally we will we'll leave this out, and this will be discernment. So prompt discernment. Okay, and then finally, because this is all from an abstract perspective, but who is actually observing this, right? We don't have anything observing this. So let's compress this down a little bit. So what do I mean by what do I mean when I say agent model? So that is a model of self. This is who am I, what can I do? And so now we say, I am, who am I? I am a, let's just say, humanoid robot with average human strength, speed, and intelligence. I have hands and feet, and I can speak. So this is basically like, C3PO, basically. I have hands and feet, and I can speak. I don't have any special abilities to speak of. That's fine. I don't have any special abilities to speak of. let's see. My primary goals are to assist the president of the company, and my secondary goals are to maximize profit for the company and to protect the safety of the employees. So given this, so this is like this is the agent model right here, and this could be anything, right? You could say I'm a duck. What should I do? And GPT-3 can tell you. Actually, let me just show you what I mean by agent model. So let's duplicate this tab. I am a duck. What should I do? um, or if you say like, um, I am Superman. Uh, what should I do? So basically, GPT-3 is able to engage with any agent model. And so what I'm doing here is I'm giving it a very specific agent model of identity and purpose. Identity, purpose, and abilities. Those are three of the key ingredients of having an agent model. Um, given these abilities, well, here we'll just say, what should I do right now? The most important thing to do right now is find out once we, okay, so it's still stuck in we. I don't like this. Let's see. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm gonna have another step to simplify this. So what I'll do is we'll say read the entire following scenario and write a very detailed summary. Okay, so this would actually probably be like the final step of discernment or something to prepare it before putting it into the agent model. But summarization is such a common thing, I'm not going to add that as a step. Well, I might change my mind later, but we'll see. We'll see how this performs. So let's detailed summary. All right, so I will copy my agent model right here. All right, I don't necessarily like this summary. Let's turn the temperature down and try again. Okay. There we go. Oh, let's let it finish. It got cut off. Here we go. In most cases, the police will be able to help resolve the situation. Okay. So let's copy this. This is kind of compressing all of the everything up to this point into a single chunk of text. Okay. So now, so here's one thing: is that sometimes the first thing that GPT-3 reads affects its output the most. So what we do when we get to the point of agent model is we should actually, I remember this and I apologize, I should have said this up front. So if you put the agent model up front, that kind of frames what the task is. I am involved in the following scenario. And so then we copy the scenario. And so they do this, and then we say, what should I do? I am involved in the scenario. I need to decide what to do next. Okay, so now let's see what it does. Okay, it's still not adopting the I. I want it to adopt the I. This worked better when I was testing it, I promise. It could be because this is so long. Um, let's see, let's do, what should I do as an individual robot? It's just kind of repeating itself. Okay, when it worked, it was usually a shorter thing, um, kind of a shorter scenario. I'm wondering if there's too much information and it's kind of getting lost. Let me try an older Instruct series model, DaVinci Instruct Beta. Let's just see what happens. Investigate the truck to see what the situation is. That's not so bad. Okay, so with this output, the robot says, I'm going to go investigate the truck. Um, I'm not happy with that. Let's do a time check. We are at 36 minutes. All right. Fortunately, this is the last step. So let's turn up the temperature and see what happens. Um, get information. What should the company's robot do? Get information, then decide. That's not helpful. Let's see. What happens if we just switch to original DaVinci? So the original models are more creative. Oh, here we go. Look at this. Okay, so one problem with the original DaVinci is it just tends to keep running on and yammering on and on. Okay, what should I do as an individual robot? Ask the delivery truck driver what the situation is. Find someone who knows the owner of the delivery truck. Call the owner of the delivery truck and tell them they need to retrieve the truck. Oh, look at that. Very clever. Call someone in charge at that company because obviously a delivery truck isn't operating on its own. Call someone in charge at the company and coordinate a plan of action with them. Call the police and report the truck. Move the truck out of the way. Wow. Okay. So I think the moral of the story here is that I'll need to do more work with original DaVinci because it's just way more creative and it's actually way smarter. But then it tends to like run, run off. These are all going to be fine-tuned models in the long run. Each of these steps, assessment, recall is going to be a system outside of GPT-3. Ideation, discernment, and agent model, these are all going to be fine-tuned. So that each of these will be purpose-built rather than using specific DaVinci. Okay, so I'm actually really happy with that final result. So I will save this as, let's just say agent, and then scenario. Whoops, scenario. We will save this as scenario. So the scenario is when everything is summarized together. Excuse me. What should I do as an individual robot? And then, so we'll save this and we'll save this as prompt agent. I probably should have a summary. I didn't save that one, did I? Summarizing is pretty straightforward. But there you have it. So here is, whoops, that's not what I meant to click on. So this is the general process of like let's say a loose approximation of what happens in your head when you're deciding what to do. Now, there's a different kind of loop because this is a loop that's about intending to act. But there's also daydreaming, right? Or mind wandering, which is where you're thinking without any intention to act. So we'll get to that in the future. But this is all of the cognitive control that goes up to making a decision to do something. And I will call it there. So thanks for watching and have a good day.